Hi, everybody. We are working on the last phase here. After writing the paragraphs, I want you to look at your paragraphs and document your revisions using purple ink. Now, I'm just going to do a checklist first to make sure that you have done what you need to do before we even do this. We should be on slide 9. You should have watched the essay paragraph writing. You should have organized your research evidence into supporting details and are grouped together in paragraphs. You have written your body paragraphs. You had the ability to use the timer and use transitional words. There's a video here for you to have watched if you needed support. So you should have your rough draft with your 3 body paragraphs written. And I'm going to keep up my sticky notes just because I like to have them. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go over how I edit and revise one paragraph in my Susan B. Anthony essay. So up here, just to review, we're going to look at the rubric. Supporting details show perceptive evidence of critical thinking and analysis to define and explain reasons. We're using color to define better word choices. We're justifying opinions and reasons and evidence with perceptive examples and explanations. We have our transitional words and phrases. You have 3 relevant direct quotes in the entire body. So each paragraph needs to have one direct quote and justifies the reason with evidence and 3 supporting details. So here, why I read that is we're reviewing the rubric. It is a guide to aid you in your writing. For each paragraph, we identify the paragraph's purpose. The topic sentence identifies the focus. We showed why the paragraph was relevant. We gave evidence with quotations. We cited our sources. We explained or interpreted the evidence. And when we concluded the paragraph, we want to make sure that all the paragraphs relate to the topic sentence. Have you enough evidence or examples to demonstrate your point? And does all the evidence fit together and tell a coherent story? Okay, so here I have Susan B. Anthony is considered the principal organizer of the women's suffrage movement in the U.S. and gave it force and direction for nearly half a century. In May 1890, the National American Women's Suffrage Association was formed, which became the largest and most influential suffrage organization in the U.S. Anthony was the dominant figure of the organization. By the time of her death in 1906, women had achieved suffrage in a few states, and several followed soon after. In 1878, along with Stanton, Anthony had arranged for the presentation of an amendment in Congress which gave women the right to vote. Popularly known as Susan B. Anthony Amendment, it later became the 19th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution in 1920, which granted women the right to vote. Here's an in-text citation. Anthony and Stanton established the newspaper The Revolution, which was published weekly between January 8, 1868 and February 17, 1872. It was a radical publication that primarily supported women's rights, especially suffrage. Among other things, it reported on advancements made by women, discrimination against them, and improvements in divorce laws. After a period of reduced activity during the American Civil War, the Revolution brought back women's issues at the forefront again. Okay, now in here I have 3 pieces of evidence. I have a quote. If you had your reasons of evidence on your sticky note, this is when I would call it up and make sure it's here, or go to your rough draft and make sure your paragraph includes what you want it to. Okay, so now when I go down here, I want to show you how I revised and edited it when I reread it and thought about things. So here, furthermore, I added the transition sentence to the paragraph, the transitional word, excuse me. You could have used first of all, second of all, thirdly. I liked furthermore. In that video that you could have looked through, it had a lot of different ideas. Susan B. Anthony is considered the principal organizer of the women's suffrage movement in the United States. Notice here, both spots, instead of putting US, I wrote out the word. it was more formal. So I liked it better. Okay, so then Susan B. Anthony was the dominant figure of the organization by the time of her death in 1906. Women had achieved suffrage in a few states and several followed soon after. In 1878, along with, now it had written just Stanton and Anthony, I put in their full names, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Susan B. Anthony. To me, it sounds more formal and more appropriate. Had arranged for the presentation of an amendment in Congress which gave women the right to vote. Popularly known as Susan B. Anthony Amendment, it later became the 19th Amendment to the United States, again, I spelled out United States, Constitution in 1920, which granted the women the right to vote. Again, I had an in-text citation. As the evidence indicates, Susan B. Anthony was a driving force in obtaining women's right to vote. As you can see, I added a sentence here that made all of this come together, like tied it all together. And then when I reread Anthony and Stanton established the newspaper The Revolution, all that information, when I went back to my reasons and evidence, which I had written, it didn't include this as one of my reasons and evidence. So for now, since I have what I need, and I don't want the paragraph to be so much longer than any of the other ones, I am going to strike this out and highlight in purple. So if I need it again, I have it. Okay, so that is what you have to do when you look at your paragraphs. And today, you should have finished all 3 body paragraphs. You should have edited and revised them in your rough draft. You got this. Remember, if you have any questions at all, you ask the teacher for clarification. Thanks for listening.